welcome to Forbidden Planet TV, and on today's episode we are joined by the fab Georgia Summers to talk about the City of Stardust. Hey Georgia, how's it going?
Thank you for having me. It's going very well.
I'm so excited. We obviously were at your launch yesterday, which was incredible. Just such a great bunch of people to celebrate such a fantastic book. So
yeah,
thank you so much for joining us today. So yeah. But you're glad, obviously, you don't really drink, so you haven't got the hangover after the launch.
I went home very late, so now I'm like, I'm sleepy, but like we're not sleepy and hungover.
Okay,
we're good.
That's a perfect combo.
Yeah,
sleepiness can be battled. So, how did City of Stardust come into being?
So I feel like with most of the books that's sort of written in my life, there's always been like one singular idea that I've built upon, and this was just like a real hodgepodge of ideas that I was like, I like these things, I'm gonna stick them all together and see what happens. So like, you know, one of the aspects of course is you know, the idea that you can sort of sit in a wardrobe and read a book and maybe you fall out the sort of other side into this magical other place, which I've always really loved, and I've always really loved portal stories like that. And then you know, there was also this time I wrote a short story at university, and it was sort of about a man who had traveled to this island that sort of disappeared for most of the year, so it was only available like once a year, and he'd go and he'd create this like magic metal, and you know, that was kind of another sort of aspect of it. And then there's also things like I saw Spirited Away fan art one time that I really liked, and it was the pandemic when I wrote this book, and I was like, okay, I can't leave my house, so Violet is gonna go everywhere. So it was a real like mishmash of all these things that I really enjoy, and luckily they kind of all came together just about.
I love as well that the I think for a lot of people, I'm not including myself in this, a lot of people were very productive during lockdown, I think, and we're coming up with these kind of great story ideas and stuff. So did you find that this kind of started coming to being during that time?
So it's really funny because I actually started this book, and I have a record of this because I keep a record. I have like something called a captain's log in like my notes, so I can kind of keep track of what I'm doing. I started in November 2019, so I started just before the pandemic, and then of course the pandemic hit. We couldn't go anywhere. I mean, it makes me sound more productive than I was. Like, I'll be honest, there was a lot of watching TV. There was a lot of cross stitch as well. But I think somewhere in that I was like, I have time to write a book. I can do that too. So yeah, it was a pandemic project.
Yeah, it's just so like, I'm not happy we had a pandemic, but I'm happy there's many beautiful books.
Yeah.
So, how did you find that your kind of previous career has influenced or changed how you write? So obviously you were an editor, you've also been like a bookseller and stuff. So yeah, how do you think that feeds into your writing?
I think it's made me very calm about the process because I know the process so well. And you know, obviously every publisher has like a different you know, they all have different variations on how it works, and that can be quite wide, but I sort of have like a good sense of, oh well, this is when the cover might happen, this is when, you know, proofs might happen, you know, if I don't hear back from my editor for a week, or if I don't hear from her for a week, I know it's because she's busy, or you know, because there's nothing to say, and it's not because she's sort of forgotten who I am. So like in that sense it was very reassuring. And in terms of like how I think of my writing, it's been really interesting because I sort of have been thinking a lot about the kind of process in terms of, you know, it's really hard now to separate like the business side of myself from the creative side. So when I was thinking about, well, strategy, for example, I always think there's like not a lot of things you can control as a writer, and I really know that, you know, now, like a lot of it is very much just you know, just not in your own hands, but the art is, and there, you know, there are some kind of, you know, I would say like strategic decisions you can make as a writer to maybe make some of it, you know, some of it easier, what you can make of it. So things like, you know, like I was like, okay, I'd really like to write a standalone because, you know, I think writing a standalone gives me maybe the strongest chance. You know, I've always loved crossover books. I also think crossover books are sort of a kind of a nice sweet spot for people who maybe don't read a lot of fantasy, but will read sort of like more accessible fantasy or mainstream fantasy. So it's kind of, you know, that was all kind of in the back of my head, but then at the same time I do feel like I've made decisions in here that I would not call commercial decisions, and I made them consciously. You know, I felt like, you know, these things are important to me because they're true to the book and true to the story that I want to tell, but then they might not be the most popular decisions. So, you know, I always think it's that kind of balance of what's important to me, and then, you know, what do I think my reader is going to feel satisfied with as well. So yeah, just kind of like being very aware of that balance.
Yeah, I mean, I quite enjoyed actually that it was a standalone. I could just kind of eat it up in a couple of sittings, and it just felt very like you could, in theory, revisit it if you so wished. We're not going to do too many spoilers, but it is quite nice. I know, obviously, working in sci-fi and fantasy, you're generally waiting on series quite often, so it's quite nice to just have the full package.
Yeah, it's been really interesting as well, like talking to other, like, you know, seeing the author side of it and sort of talking to other authors and sort of rethinking about it as well. You know, you grow so much as a writer. I mean, I finished writing this book, really the bulk of it, in June 2020, well, May 2022. So, you know, that's a long time from now, and, you know, you do change and develop as a writer in those sort of intervening years. And so, you know, it's also like thinking, well, like, do you want to write this world for you know, 3 books? Because that's a really long time to be in that space. So, you know, and some people are like, yes, absolutely, I do want to do this. It's a really exciting, important project for me. But I think for me, I was like, I don't know if I want to commit so deeply to something that could be, you know, 5 years of my life. Because that's probably about how long it takes roughly for a trilogy, if you factor in all the publishing time.
That is crazy. I think there is a timeless appeal, especially to your writing. Your writing is absolutely beautiful. What would you say are your kind of biggest influences in your writing? Like other authors or other artists, anyone that's really kind of inspired your writing?
Oh my gosh, I could list so many words and so many things. I would say, you know, when I had like a point in my life when I was at university, and I was like, it felt to me like I was really expanding on what I was reading. I kind of got into the fantasy section. I was like, you know, I've always read fantasy, but I felt this was the first time I like seen how wide it was and like how much, and there's so many exciting things happening at that time. Like that's when The Night Circus was published, that's when Daughter of Smoke and Bone was published, that's when The Golem and the Genie was published, and I really loved all those books. I loved the way they dealt with language, and they sort of really spent time like really crafting these really beautiful cinematic you know, not even just worlds but just scenes, like, you know, set pieces. So that really stuck with me. And then I guess of looking further back, you know, I always go back to, for this book especially, I always go back to Sabriel by Garth Nix. It's so good. And one of the things I love that he does with his world building in the Abortion trilogy is he, like, it feels so vast. Like the Old Kingdom feels so like there's so much more history. You know, like I always like remember like bits like when she's going up like these massive stairs, like Sabriel's going massive stairs, and she's like, I don't know who built these or why, and it just feels so like you could just like land in that world and have so much mystery, and you do think about all these things beyond the page, and that's really what I wanted to evoke with this.
Yeah, I love the idea as well that there are still unanswered questions in the books, but it's very much like Sabriel or even things like his Dark Materials and stuff. Like there's whole other stories happening, there's whole other worlds within worlds kind of thing. So,
it was like I feel like it's one of those things where it's like I feel like a lot of different things were kind of poured into it.
But you've done such a fantastic job.
Thank you.
So what did you think kind of came first for you? Was the world kind of fully formed, or did any of the kind of characters kind of suddenly kick their way in and suddenly you're just like, okay, I need to write this person's story?
I wish I had a really good plan for this. I did not. I didn't plan it. I basically what happened was I was working on. I'd written another book, and I was sort of like dying on the querying, and I knew I was dying, which is structurally it was not very good. But you know, so I sort of started writing the City of Stardust just as kind of something to do to keep me busy while I was like waiting for the rejections to come in. And you know, I started off with the prologue. I think that's one of the first things I wrote. Not all of it. I added in like two more prologues because I was like, one is not enough. But I think that first prologue is like one of the first things I wrote, and then I sort of started writing about Violet being in this cupboard overhearing her uncles talking about her, and that's kind of still been like the core image that I had when and that's kind of the core image that's really stayed, I think.
Yeah, it's you can definitely tell again with the characters, like we were talking about the world before, the characters are so multi-layered, and especially the uncles, obviously they're keeping many secrets and kind of, you know, just disappearing, reappearing, like what are they actually up to, which is just so intriguing when you start the book.
I love my uncles. I've got my jumper uncle and I've got my leather jacket uncle.
Yeah.
I was going through and I was like, I reference like jumpers like quite a lot in the book. So I was like, yes, my jumper uncle is my gentle academic man, and then you've got leather jacket uncle who's just sort of gruff and hides his feelings, but he has feelings.
Yes. Yeah, just no jumpers.
Yeah, just no jumpers. Nothing but a leather jacket. No, he wears clothes.
Yeah. Oh dear, jumper daddy, leather daddy. You've got both.
Yes.
For folks out there, you've got it all covered. I particularly love in City of Stardust the kind of the motif of the keys and kind of being able to kind of unlock different places and different stories in a way. Where did that kind of idea come from?
That's a really good question. I originally, it wasn't keys at all, it was a map, and I was having a really hard time figuring out how that worked, where it worked. And I think for a long time it really was just it, you know, the scholars didn't exist as like a whole, like they were just, I think it really was just, you know, Aleksander, who's sort of the I guess the main male character protagonist, and then his sort of mentor Penelope. And then it was like, well, actually, they should probably have more people in this. They should probably have more people. So then I was like, okay, well, they can't all have this, share like this one giant map that the main character Violet is also searching for. So I was like, you know what, keys, doorways, keys. And then I was like, oh, it took me like a year to come up with that. Naturally, so it took like a while to get there, but once I got it, I was like, oh, okay, it clicks and it's fun, and it's like something that, you know, I always like the idea that it's something that you could have in real life as well. Like it feels like something that, you know, you could also do. Yes. I think that's what makes it feel fun.
Yeah, that you could accidentally unlock a door.
Yeah.
As a quote unquote normie.
Yeah.
It also kind of reminded me, I don't know if you remember the Clark's princess shoes. So like a kid of the 80s, they had Clark's princess shoes that had a key in the bottom of the shoe, and they were like probably like 5, 6, 7-year-olds, like aimed at that age.
I've seen these on TikTok.
And they had a little like map, and then you'd have a key that's meant to like obviously unlock something. I never got any. Whenever I think of keys, I just like, God damn the shoe.
I think these were just before my time, but like I have seen those on TikTok, and I would have been all over that as a child.
They should bring them back. We could have them. Tie them in with a book. But we should get adult key shoes.
Adult key shoes. I like that. I feel like that'd be fun.
Crossover waiting to happen. Another thing I particularly enjoyed is a very kind of unique magic system that you have in here. Almost like artisanal in a way, that you're kind of, rather than, I don't know, like throwing fireballs or whatever, that you're actually having to kind of make things in a way. Where did that kind of come from?
I think I really wanted Fidelis, which is the sort of magical city, to feel really like picturesque and beautiful, and really like these are people who appreciate beautiful things. And I also think I kind of knew it wasn't gonna be like a big fighting kind of book. There's not a lot of fighting in the book, physical fighting. And so I was like, well, I don't know how useful it is gonna be if they can throw fireballs. And it sort of felt to me like it kind of like organic, like if they're working with doors and keys, and it should be something they can make, and if they're making those things, they're probably making other things. I wanted it to feel pretty like wondrous. Like I know there are darker elements in the book as well, but I sort of wanted it to feel like wondrous, almost despite or because of that, you know, like it could be like a place that you would still love to go and see.
Yeah, it definitely, such a unique way of doing magic, and like you said, I think some kind of giant. I'm just trying to think of the many magic systems that are out there. You wouldn't want someone like tossing around fireballs. It just wouldn't.
No,
make
I do also wonder again if it's like that pandemic thing where I got really into crafts.
Oh.
I got really into Fimo clay when I was during the pandemic. So to me, it feels like also maybe an extension of what I was doing with my time.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, it all comes together. So we have to talk about obviously the very, very beautiful edition, but also for anyone out there, there is a beautiful Fairy Loot edition that is just absolutely stunning. So did you have kind of much say in your special editions, or you just like?
I was very lucky. Everything was beautiful.
Everything was beautiful.
Everything was beautiful. They sent these beautiful things to me, and I was like, excellent.
Done.
Yeah, that was very strange. Like again, like coming from the editorial background, where I'm used to like having these like thousands of emails about is the figure right? Is this right? Do we need the mountains to be bigger? Do we need this thing to be smaller? What font are we going to use? And I just didn't have to think about any of that, and I felt like I've not done any work for this. So yes, I've been extremely lucky because it has all been fabulous, and it's been like fabulous from the get-go.
Yes, yeah. I mean, and because this is kind of, well, obviously yesterday's launch was the first time I'd actually seen the physical copies, but yeah, even like
oh, so beautiful. So beautiful.
It's just such a beautiful package. It feels very special. So yes, definitely. So let's kind of wrap up the interview with a couple more questions, and then obviously we've got lots of copies for you to sign.
Yes.
So what are you currently working on?
So I'm currently working on another fantasy standalone, and it is basically about a book thief who inherits a magical bookshop, and she sort of gets caught up in this kind of murder mystery. There's a sort of shady society that's also after this bookshop. There's ink magic, and of course there's this other really hot bookseller who I've been describing as a sexy undertaker, who also really wants the bookshop and will kind of do anything to get it. So that's what I'm working on at the moment.
Ooh, that does sound good. There needs to be more books in bookshops. After
so.
Legends and Lattes were kind of getting there with coffee shops for me. I was just like, yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Bookshops.
Bookshops is where it's at.
Got it, yeah. Too many years working retail.
Yeah.
We need more magic in bookshops. And to finish off, what are you currently reading, watching, and if you game, what are you playing?
Okay, so I've been watching Reservation Dogs on Disney Plus, which I've been really enjoying. I've really liked it. It's very funny and also incredibly heartbreaking at moments, which rude. And then in terms of what I've been reading, I've just finished reading. It doesn't come out until May, so it sort of feels a bit cruel because it's so good. It's Ministry of Time.
Yes.
It's phenomenal. I read the whole thing in like a morning. I cried, and I never cry at books. I've cried at 2 books in my life, and that was the second one.
What was it?
Revolution by Jennifer Donnelly.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
so good. But very, very, very specific time. Yeah, and it's so it's so good. It's basically what if the government had time travel, and what if they could sort of bring back people who had essentially died in their own time, but bring them back just before they died or as they were dying into our sort of present day, and sort of look after them basically as sort of time expats. And it is incredibly good. It's just incredibly moving, devastating, but also really joyful. And so yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I really hope it does amazingly well. It deserves to do everything. Highly recommend it. Cannot recommend it enough. May is a long way away.
It'll be here before you know it. It's scary.
No, I'm gonna get my hands on all the pretty things.
May's Comic-Con month, so that's always like a really hectic month. But hopefully you're going to be doing some stuff at Comic-Con.
Oh, we'll see what happens.
But yeah, no, well, they need more time for reading as well.
Yeah. Oh, and then video game wise, I've just finished playing Final Fantasy 16, which I quite liked. I really liked it.
It's so like everyone's split down the middle over that game. Ever since 15,
which I also really liked,
which I liked once the DLC was added because it made more sense.
Yeah.
But if you were day one playing, like, what the hell happened?
Yes, I was that person. Like, I was like, this is a mess, but I love these boys in their car, and I will die for them.
It was very, like, there was some very hard, like,
yeah.
Especially the end of that game.
I know.
That really got me.
I was like, that's also rude. Why would you do this?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So 16 was really, it's interesting. I have a lot of feelings about it. I have a lot of thoughts about it, but I do feel like I think the voice actor of the main male character really carries it, and he's so phenomenal. So
yeah, and there's obviously with Rebirth around the corner.
Oh my god, I'm so excited! I can't wait. I'm at an event on that day, and I'm like, when I'm pre-ordering it when I get home. I'm gonna make sure that my everything is cleared, so I can play that and find out what happens.
Has to be free.
Because I did Crisis Core was my first Final Fantasy VII video game, and so I have extreme feelings about all of it.
Oh my god! And it was again with the remake of FF7 because I generally like turn-based JRPGs, and I was just like, am I gonna get the hang of them, or kind of like the open combat system and stuff? And actually within 20 minutes I was just switching between characters, and you're just the story is again just so
excited.
just so incredible.
And then Baldur's Gate is one that I've got my eye on, but I'm not allowed to start it until I finish my edits.
It's huge. My other half has played it and absolutely loved it, and he's just like, I think I would like it as well, and I'm not as familiar with like the Baldur's Gate universe, but it does.
I know nothing about it except that there's a hot vampire man that I will romance.
Yes. If you had to pick. It's just like,
I'm here for the important bits.
We actually had a meeting the other day where we were talking about various games and stuff coming out, and obviously windows and stuff that we can do. And I'm a huge Persona 5 fan, and Persona 3, like the reboot, is coming out quite soon. And our marketing manager was just like, well, which weeb is going to be off on this day? And I was like, I am that weeb. I will be off on that day.
I know my flaws.
If you need me between these hours, absolutely not. But yeah, we are very lucky to have such great games, and you can definitely, in the best possible way, you can sometimes see influences in books, and I love that, where you kind of see that, I bet she plays
romance. I'm here for all of it.
Oh my god, so exciting. But thank you so much for joining us today, and we're obviously about to sign a ton of copies, and then you've got obviously lots of exciting plans over the next few days. Many copies to sign.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, not a problem. And if you want to pre-order or order a signed copy, they'll be available on our website and in all of our stores. We'll see you next time. Bye.
If you're enjoying watching Forbidden Planet TV and you're enjoying watching us talk to the world's most interesting and accomplished filmmakers, authors, artists, musicians, creators, subscribe right here. See you soon.